Miami had a chance to make a statement versus the Sixers on Thursday, and they did. They're not good enough. 3 straight wins have been followed up now by 2 straight losses. And Wes, are there any positive takeaways from the loss?
One step closer to a lottery pick?
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. However, you might be tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Have your cake and drink it too. Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork needed. Vanilla-y cakey flavor, caffeinated kick, and no sugar. It's party time. Order now at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. I'm here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. Got a ton to get to today. We are recording this after the Heat's loss to the Sixers. David, just a tough one. That's going to hurt them in the standings. They had a chance to move into a virtual tie with the Sixers and get the tiebreaker outright for 6th place. Instead, they're going to drop 3 games behind them in the loss column. Coming into the game, we called it a must-win, and the Heat really let it get away in the first half, I thought.
Absolutely. That was the deciding part right there, because they had a sensational showing the second half, completely different from what we'd seen earlier in the game. And we saw Joel Embiid go off for a bunch of his points. We saw Tyrese Maxey setting franchise records for three-pointers. He was sensational. And it really wasn't much that Miami could do. They just looked like they were completely overclassed. And eventually they did figure it out. They did play some tighter defense. They were able to hit some great shots. The third quarter was a really decisive moment for Miami, and they really showed a lot of the same kind of energy that we had expected them to in terms of understanding the crucial nature of this game and trying to make a statement. And they played very, very well. But some moments down the stretch there where they falter a little bit, some shots didn't fall, some defensive miscues, and ultimately they wound up getting beat. So it was a disappointing loss. Maybe not as disappointing as the loss of the Bucks a couple nights earlier, but still one that's definitely going to impact them negatively in the standings.
Yeah, let's talk about that third quarter, I guess. Why did that third quarter stand out so much more than the other quarters where they didn't have it going? I guess the obvious place to start is, I think, with Philly, maybe, because Maxey, after that crazy eruption to start the game, 20 points in the first quarter, he goes 2 for 8 in the third quarter. He played all 12 minutes in that third quarter and was really bad. Just couldn't make a shot. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Tyler Herro, who starts in Norm Powell's place in the third quarter, Powell leaves early because of a groin injury. Still TBD to see on how serious that's going to be. But Herro starts the second half in place of Powell, and he goes off for 10 points on 4 of 7 shooting, 2 of 4 from three-point range, had 3 assists in that third quarter. And then Bam, I thought, was really aggressive, and he's 5 for 6 for 13 points in that quarter, including making 3 three-pointers. It did feel like, to me, in this game, that Philly had a lot of different answers throughout the game, outside of that third quarter, right? They outscored Miami they had 50 points in the paint, Philadelphia did. That is very unheat-like to allow that many points in the paint. Meanwhile, it just felt like Miami's best stretches were when they were just making threes, and we've seen these games before, and it's just not sustainable.
Yeah, that's a good point. They were a little reliant there. Even some what looked like really bad offensive possessions just wound up with the ball in either Herro or Adebayo's hands, especially in the third quarter, and they were able to knock down a three-pointer. I just didn't think that they were able to run their offense. Like, it didn't feel like there were any plays being run or executed to the precise nature of what they needed to be, and just more likely just scoring by chance more than anything else. And those shots fell as opposed to other points in the game where they did not fall as easily. So yeah, they went 6 of 10 from 3-point range during that third quarter, 14 of 26 overall for 54% shooting. So their third quarter was sensational, but again, a lot of that shot just happened. The shot making felt more like a pure accident. Like they had just stumbled across it. Like, well, we can't be bad all game long. But they weren't really executing well. I don't think they were able to get anything really going offensively. They didn't seem to create any kind of obvious advantage in their favor. It was just, as you said, able to hit the 3-point shot or not, which was the case most of the game.
Yeah, and this is, again, the second game in a row when I think we've had an issue with their shot selection overall, and another game where they didn't take care of the details, right? They lost the turnover battle. They lost the offensive rebounding battle. They gave up too many points in transition. We just talked about 50 points in the paint, which I think is the most surprising stat of all of them. This team is not talented enough to not win on the margins, right? And I think this game in particular was a great case study of that, because I think you can argue 3 through 12 that Miami is a better team than Philly, right? Like, you go from 3 down to the rest of the roster, Miami's a better team, but they've got Joel Embiid and they've got Tyrese Maxey, and they just have star power that the Heat don't have, and that was the star power that was carrying Philly. They got, small occasional contributions from other spots on the roster, but nothing that, like, they didn't get the big Quentin Grimes game or the big crazy game that we were kind of wary of coming into this thing. Instead, they got big games from their 2 star players, and that was enough to carry them to a win, where Miami could have won this game. Like, they had the lead with 2.5 minutes to go. They had a 1-point lead after Tyler Herro hits the pull-up 3 to give them that lead with 2 minutes and 44 seconds left. And then they get outscored 8-0 the rest of the way. I want to talk about their clutch time issues here in a second, but this was a winnable game, but I think they lost because when you're facing that kind of star power, the Heat don't have it, so you've got to win on the margins, and they lost on the margins, and I think that's why, more than anything, they lost this game.
Well, I think they got big contributions from guys like Kelly Oubre Jr. and VJ Edgecombe late in the game. Like, as good as Embiid and Maxey were in the first half, I think the secondary players really did carry Philadelphia, especially late in the game. There were some big shots from Edgecombe. He seemed like he was just
21 points for Oubre, 19 for Edgecombe. Wiggs had 18. Jaime had 19 off the bench. Like,
it should have been
sort of a wash on role players. Yeah,
I guess you could say that. I mean, their bench played Philadelphia's for sure, but they just did get more production from their starting group, and I think they were missing Norm Powell. Like, his ability to make shots, he was clearly bothered in the few minutes that he did play, going just 1 of 5 from the floor, 1 of 4 from 3-point range. So he was clearly out of sorts. He wasn't much of a factor, and you wonder whether or not, had he been healthy, whether or not they would have had a better chance. But you can't play that game because then you wouldn't get Tyler and his production in the fourth quarter, where he was mostly solid. But in the fourth quarter, I'm sorry, in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, he was 2 of 4 overall, but Bam going 0 for 4 really did hurt Miami's offense because they just weren't able to generate any kind of consistent scoring from anybody else.
It's been a month since the Heat beat a team with a winning record.
Wow.
Some of that is just based on the schedule. They haven't played a ton of those teams, but every time they've faced them, they've lost over the last month. There's also an all-star break in there, so it's a dramatic sounding stat, but it's still problematic nonetheless. And I think what's really clear about this team is that they are good against the bad teams, right? They beat New Orleans. They beat Memphis. They beat these teams. Milwaukee isn't a good team, but they were playing well heading into that game, and they lost that game. And then the Sixers team isn't rocking the Eastern Conference, but they're above 500. They're a solid playoff team, and right now they're leading for 6th place right now in the East. This Heat team is mid, man. Like, they're just mid. They're good at beating the bad teams, and anytime they play anybody with a pulse, they just find ways to lose. And I think that maybe is the most problematic thing going right now for this Heat team. They could still make the playoffs. They're going to make the play-in tournament probably definitely at the very least. What spot in the play-in tournament, I guess TBD on that. Charlotte tonight now pulls within 2 games of Miami for the 7-8 bracket part of the play-in tournament. So I might have been a little early on saying that was impossible when we were coming out of the break, but yeah, I mean, this is just a team that they're exactly where they should be, right in the middle, right below all the good teams, right above all the really bad teams.
Yeah. You keep expecting something, and I don't know. I listen. I know I do read the responses from our fans and viewers, and I know that people have been saying this for a while. And I know I've kind of argued the opposite point because I do think this team is better than what we see, but ultimately you're judged by what you do on the court, and Miami just hasn't been able to do anything particular well, and that's the problem there, is that they're not really a great defensive team despite what their ranking is. I think they're also obviously not a very good offensive team. They don't generate.
I think they're a good defensive team. You don't think they're a good defensive team? I think tonight they weren't great, but generally speaking, I think they're good.
I think they're fair. I think they're more. I think they're better at doing what they can with what they have, but they don't seem to smother anybody defensively, especially in key possessions there.
To your point, in the fourth quarter, I was like, it would be really nice if somebody could just get a steal and a score here. Like it kind of like they feel starved for a defensive playmaker. I think they're really good at standing in between the ball and the basket.
Yeah.
They're top 5 in defensive rating. That's not nothing. They're very good at usually finishing plays, getting defensive rebounds and things like that. But they don't have guys that are creating swing plays defensively. And it feels like, especially with this offense, they really need it. Meanwhile, I think the Heat have a much bigger problem that we don't talk about enough here, and I think that was on full display and cost them this game tonight. We're going to talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. The season's heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or maybe just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. And with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are nights when your team stresses you up, like tonight. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need dessert, maybe a snack of some kind, maybe something to drink to wash away the misery. Those late-night interviews hit and suddenly you need chips at midnight. Well, guess what? DoorDash is built exactly for that. And if the group chat says pull up, DoorDash makes sure you show up prepared. Snacks, cups, maybe even a phone charger for that thread is always at 2%. From tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen of the day. Being part of the Cookie Gang and becoming an everydayer comes with some great perks, including ad-free shows. Plus, if you join the All Access tier, you're going to get even more, including text message updates like running game notes that you would have gotten tonight, injury news like you would have gotten today, transaction rumors around the trade deadline, draft, and offseason, all sent directly to you via text message. You'll also get a chance to text us questions for post-game shows like this one. If you're interested in being part of the Cookie Gang and joining the Everydayer Club, tap the link in the show notes or head to lockedonheat.supercast.com to learn more. You were just talking about DoorDash, David. I used DoorDash tonight. My wife and I ordered dinner. I ordered a cookie. You mentioned like the things that get you through the season. A chocolate chip cookie that got me through the night. It was a really good one.
Did it work?
Did it work in perking up my mood? Yes. Did it work in getting the Heat a win? No. Unfortunately, I had a cookie. The Heat did not get credit cookies. Instead, we're going to talk about a big problem plaguing the Heat this year. The Heat are now 13-13 after this game in clutch games this season. They entered the game with one of the worst net ratings in clutch games in the league. They were getting outscored by more than 10 points per 100 possessions in clutch games. It's a small sample, but it was still one of the worst marks in the league.
Yeah.
In this game in particular, we see them get outscored 8-0 in the final 2.5 minutes after Tyler Herro's three-pointer gives them a 1-point lead. They had the game in the bag, David. They let it slip away. That 8-0 run over the last 2.5 minutes. This team is just starved for a closer, and for a moment it looked like Tyler Herro could be the closer, and there have been moments where I think Tyler Herro is, for the record, a closer, but he just hasn't been available for them most of the season, and so maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe it's as simple as, hey, your closer, you haven't had him for most of the year, and that's why you're bad in clutch games. Now, Bam has also been really bad in clutch games. He's shooting 27% in the clutch this season. It can't just be one guy does it all, right? Like the best teams in the league don't work that way, right? You need somebody else to be able to step up. And right now, the Heat are getting nobody to step up in clutch time basically all season long. It's a problem for them, and I think it was a really big problem, and it's the reason why they lost tonight.
What are Norm's numbers in the clutch? Do you have those available?
Average, not great.
Okay.
And frankly, not taking enough shots.
Yeah, that's a concern too. So, I think it does speak to Miami's just the roster buildup. They've got a lot of good players, nobody great, and everything needs to be working perfectly on both sides of the ball in order for them to find a way to win. I think you can have the opportunity that might be good enough to beat, as you've said, sub 500 teams, but against good teams, it's going to be a rock fight. It's going to be a tough battle. And then when you get down to those moments in the fourth quarter where you need somebody to step up, that player just doesn't exist. That player isn't on the roster. And I don't think it's Tyler, to be honest with you, because I think there are going to be defensive issues with him out there, and I think some of those were kind of there tonight. Look, I did like one play from him. I think it was in the third quarter where he gets beat by somebody, then he goes and responds on the other side. I think he wanted to attack somebody directly, and he did get his bucket there, and then he wound up intercepting a pass.
Yeah.
And initiating a fast break. It was like a really good, you could see that. It was like, you know what? There was a moment there where he was like, oh, he's determined. He wants to be able to make an imprint on this game.
That was if I could just jump in really quick, that was my favorite series of the game. I wrote it down in my notes. Tyler Herro gets that steal that you're talking about. It was at the end of the third quarter. Gets that steal, and that leads to Bam taking Maxey down in the post because Philly's forced to get in transition. Maxey's like the back guy, right? Because he's the point guard. Right. So he runs back. Herro hits it ahead to Bam. Bam just sees him behind him and just gets him. Those are your two star players doing exactly what they need to be doing. Frankly, we don't see enough of, right? Tyler Herro making a game-changing type of defensive play. Bam taking down a small in the post.
Right. So
I interrupted you.
That's it. No, that's it. That's it right there. It's like you see the moments, you see it from your quote-unquote star players, but you don't see enough of those. And you don't see a lot of those moments and clutch opportunities. And so that's it. That defines your season. They don't have that player. They had that player a couple seasons ago in Jimmy Butler. And I know, it's a long, lengthy discussion, but it doesn't matter because he's not on the roster. And they haven't been able to replicate that. They don't have anybody else on the roster capable of doing that. And so they need to execute so well in the first half in order to be able to give them a cushion because of their lack of clutch scoring. And that was not the case in tonight's game against Philadelphia, where they were giving up hemorrhaging points to Maxey and Embiid both. So they put themselves in a really tough position. I do think they showed some heart in the third quarter to be able to come back, and as you said, they even take a slim lead at one point, at a couple different points late in the second half, but it wasn't enough. And then in the fourth quarter, where you need somebody to generate some easy offense or to be able to will themselves to the cup or just be able to knock down that shot from the perimeter, that player doesn't exist.
Nobody get to the line, right? I'm glad you brought up Jimmy, right? This team needs a guy like that who just at the end of these games can get to the free throw line. Maybe can make a swing defensive play, right? Like a steal or something like that late in the game. Funny enough, I feel like this version of the roster is better suited to house somebody like Jimmy Butler than the Jimmy Butler teams. Really. Now, you add Norm Powell, you add Davion Mitchell, I think the floor of this team is a lot higher than the previous Jimmy Butler iterations.
That's fair.
The last couple of years.
That's fair.
Now, obviously, that's a completely flawed way of thinking because you got a lot of these guys because you traded Jimmy Butler, right? You don't have the space to get Norm Powell if you have Jimmy Butler on the roster. You don't get Davion Mitchell if you're not getting him as part of a Jimmy Butler trade. But this is why this team is looking at guys like Giannis or Donovan Mitchell this summer and things like that. I mean, we keep coming back to the same problem, right? We talk about all the different kinds of issues that are plaguing this Heat team, whether it's offense, whether it's clutch time execution, whether it's the fact that they lack a general pecking order, which you bring up all the time, and I think it's an astute observation. All these issues kind of come down to the same thing. You get a star player, an alpha dog in here. Yeah. All that stuff just goes away. It goes away. All those it's the one thing that solves all of your problems. Obviously, much easier said than done to go get that guy, because if they could get that guy, they would have done it already. Meanwhile, I do think this game was also another reminder of why. Look, we just talked about the fact that the Heat never tank. I think this game may have served as a reminder as to why every once in a while it's good to maybe dip your toes into the little, not to say the tanking waters, but the top of the draft. Whether you get there, however you get there, it's good to get there every once in a while. We're going to talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set. The flavors are ready. I've got my number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy Flavored Draft. I've talked about it before. It's cherry. It's classic. It's delicious. I love it. It's a recognizable flavor. You can't go wrong. I don't know if I've ever had a cherry flavored drink that just is off-putting or anything like that. And with 5 Hour Energy, you get something that's tasty. It gives you the boost you need to carry on your day. But they've got so many other flavors to choose from. One I tried recently was a strawberry banana, really, really good. A nice mellow banana finish there, reminiscent of a fruit smoothie. So I really like that. It was but just a really good flavor. And you know what? A strong contender for my number one pick. It's definitely one of my top 5, but there's others to choose from, whether it's the confetti one or whether or not it's a strawberry watermelon. It's also a great flavor. Blue raspberry is one I like as well. So there's lots of different flavors to choose from. Ultimately, I had to stick with cherry. It's just too good for me to take away from the number one spot. But you know what? Maybe you'll find one that's a different option. Let us know in the comments. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots available at 5hourenergy.com or via Amazon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, well, that part always hasn't been so simple. And that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You just pull up the Game Time app. You pick an upcoming NBA game in your city, and you get tickets locked in within minutes. It's that simple to use. You see all the prices right up front. No hidden fees at checkout, nothing to keep you by surprise. You know exactly what you're going to pay. You lock in those tickets, and you're good to go. And you're able to see exactly where you're sitting. You're worried maybe you might not get a good view of the court or the field or the stage, depending on whatever venue or whatever event you're going to. Well, you can see it exactly via the Game Time app. That's what makes that so convenient. But there's so many great deals on all these different type of events. You'll always find a best price available. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, you create an account, and you use the code LOCKEDON, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen of the day. Before we get to the text line and the listener questions, David, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Is VJ Edgecombe a reminder of why teams need to get a top pick every so often? Because you look at where Philly was last year. Embiid can't stay healthy. Paul George can't stay healthy. Yes, we all love Tyrese Maxey. He's a good player. But this team was going nowhere, and they were going nowhere fast. They were capped out. No real way to break out of the spot that they were in. They had just given Embiid this monster extension, and now he can't stay on the court even more than usual. And it just looked like they were going towards a dead end and waiting out these Embiid and Paul George contracts. They lose a bunch of games. They get a little bit of luck in the lottery, and they draft VJ Edgecombe. And the roster between last year and this year is not all that different. Now, they did get some youth in different spots, right? Like Kel'el Ware and Eric Gordon don't play for them now, and you know, you get guys like Trent Wofford and stuff like that up and down the roster. But it's really the Edgecombe piece is the biggest difference, and it just feels like this breath of fresh air. You get this really talented player with real star potential on a rookie contract, and that is exactly the kind of thing that a team like Philly needed, right? A good player on a cheap contract with boundless optimism ahead of them. And this Sixers team just feels like it's in a completely different spot than it was this time last year. For this Heat team, they're not as down in the dumps as that Sixers team was last year, but in a similar way, they do kind of feel like they're going nowhere fast. And there is, you talk about this all the time, there's good players, not great players, and I don't even know if like the best version of some of these young players pans out. Those best versions aren't the best version of somebody like VJ Edgecombe, right?
Yeah.
To have somebody like that, you really only get those guys in that part of the draft. Is this just a reminder of every once in a while it's good to get a bad break because it sometimes will lead to a good break like this one?
Yeah, I guess so. That's one way of looking at it. Look, I like Edgecombe a lot. I think he's going to be a great player, very Wade-like for me, and the way he approaches everything. He coming up big in the fourth quarter there, knocking down shots freely from the mid-range. He's so athletic. He just flies to the hoop. He's got great potential. He's still so young at 20 years old. So definitely a player that I think eventually you'll be able to build a team around. I think he's that good. So you're not going to find those players where Miami typically makes their pick in the draft. So definitely a strong argument for that. But I think he's also on the right team because there's also a lot of those factors that we talked about earlier. They have that pecking order. They have their superstar player in Maxey, and still a very functional pseudo-star in Joel Embiid when he's out on the floor as well. Like maybe he's not the same player he was even a couple seasons ago, but he's still very good in spot moments there. And so he can flourish in that role. He's not counted on to carry the team, but he can step up in the right moments, and he certainly did that tonight in a much needed win for them. So it's a reminder that the best way of getting that type of talent, and the draft usually pans out for a reason. I know I'm kind of more sour on the draft overall than most people, but I think you definitely need to have some of those moments there where you can get lucky enough to get a Dwayne Wade, or in this case, a VJ Edgecombe. Somebody who can really raise your franchise up to that next level and help. And look, you surround that player. You don't put him as the focal point, because that's usually a recipe for disaster, but he has to be surrounded by the right players. You have to have the right culture and stability and everything else, the consistency, but you help them to thrive. You help them find their footing at the NBA level. And the players that Miami has, whether it's Jaime Jaquez or even Kel'el Ware, like Kel'el is a very good player, and I know some people might argue otherwise. I do not see right now that he is a star in the making. Does he have all-star potential? Sure. But you know what? Who else has all-star potential is Tyler Herro, and half the fan base seems like they want to trade him for, a pocket full of lint at every opportunity. So I don't know if you're going to find the kind of player that is a franchise centerpiece picking 13th through 20th every year.
Yeah. Like the Giannis's and the Kawhis are so rare, right? We think about them anecdotally and we're like, well, why can't we find that guy? You really look at the numbers. I mean, it is less than a 1% chance of finding those guys in the middle of those spots of the draft. And it's just the odds get high. It's never a guarantee in the draft, but the odds of finding a difference maker. Edgecombe may never be the best player on a championship winning team, right? Like, we don't know if he is the next Dwayne Wade or anything like that, but his chances of being that, or at the very least being a multiple-time All-Star or something close to that, is much higher at that spot in the draft. Let's get to our listener questions from the Cookie Gang. You can submit questions for the post-game shows like this by joining the Everydayer Club. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more, or go to supercast.lockedonheat.com. William writes in, it felt like there were periods of this game where the ball handlers and the point of attack defense were lacking energy. Davion Mitchell didn't look 100%, neither did Norm Powell. Do you think this time the Heat should keep Powell away from the court until he's fully healthy? What do you think's going on with Davion? He didn't close the game at all. We need that point of attack defense. I do think Powell needs to let this groin injury heal. I think that they should be, as groin injuries are fickle, as we know. Like they're kind of a finicky injury. Make sure that thing's 100% before he gets back out there on the court, because the problem with those groin injuries is if you aggravate it, it just gets worse. So yes, on Powell. In terms of Davion Mitchell, he's been on the injury report for the last week with an illness, and it clearly is affecting him out there, David. I don't know if you have anything to add to this.
Yeah, I don't know that he would have made a difference in late in the game.
Right, the way he's playing.
Yeah. So as far as Powell, now that you have Tyler back and he looks as comfortable as he does, maybe that's a little bit overly taxing. You don't want to necessarily put him in that position, but that's the benefit of having two guys that play similar roles within context of the offense. So I think you can go with Tyler as a starter, let Norm rest for a week or two, however long it takes, and get him back at 100% for the final run.
Denzel writes in, Coach Spo's poor adjustments are killing this team, in all caps. Where needs to start, in all caps? What are we doing? Not all caps, but an exclamation point. I understand the Kel'el Ware hive is alive and well and loud most of the time. Ware was a -9 in this game. He was 2 for 7 overall. He got out-hustled and outplayed by Adebayo. Kel'el Ware was not the answer tonight. He got pulled after not getting back in transition. That was it.
Yeah, should he have played more minutes? I don't know. Look, he had a strong showing against Milwaukee, and that you could have made that argument, a better argument, that night. But I don't think that was the case at all tonight. I don't think he had a role to play, and he wasn't much of a factor in the minutes he did get. So it's unfortunate, and you kind of hope that he gets his opportunity and he makes the most of it. And I know that's difficult because the minutes have been so inconsistent. But some of that is on him. Some of that definitely on Eric Spoelstra too. But he's got to be able to be stronger in the minutes he's out there and be able to make an impact.
Get back in transition, you don't get pulled, and you probably come back in the game at some point. I mean, it's that simple. We know Spo's going to be hard on him. We know that at this point, and that's just.
And starting, you really want him starting against Joel Embiid? Because I sure as heck don't. Even this.
We did get a minute. We got a minute of Bam and Ware together in the second quarter, and I was like, oh, planned Kel'el and Bam time, because we got this in the fourth quarter against Milwaukee, but only because Ware was playing well, and that was sort of a hot hand situation. And that lasted a minute, and then Bam came out. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. Yeah. Jonah writes in, please lose out in the play-in tournament. That's it. Not a question, but David, you look at the standings right now. If this were the play-in tournament, Miami would be 8th. They would play Orlando in the 7-8 game. let's say they lose that one. They have to play the winner of Atlanta versus Charlotte. I'll go out on a limb and say the Hornets probably win that game.
Yeah.
Miami could lose to the Hornets, especially the way the Hornets have been playing lately.
Yeah.
And when I say lately, I mean like for 2 months now. The Hornets have been playing really well.
Yeah.
I'm not ruling it out. I actually think the Heat have a better chance to beat Orlando than they do Charlotte, but strange things happen in the playing tournament. If Paolo Banchero's playing the way he's playing, Desmond Bane's been really good for Orlando. Like, if they're playing this way, Miami could certainly lose to the Magic. They can't beat a 500 team anyway, so, yeah, maybe. Maybe it happens.
It's not a foregone conclusion that they'll be able to luck in a playoff seed. Like, their best path is trying to get into the 5th, 6th seed, and that seems less likely with each one of these tough losses. So, yeah, I mean, it's what's the difference here? Like, even still, though, I mean, we just talked about the draft and how important it is. Do you increase your chances if you miss out on the play-in tournament? Yeah, I guess so. But everybody's looking at Dallas, and maybe it's all just this prisoner of the moment kind of mentality across society. But like what Dallas did last year never happens, and I don't think we're going to bank on it happening again for Miami. Like, if it does, look, I'd be happy for it to happen. I'd love Miami to somehow fall into the first pick or a top 5 pick in the draft, and I'll be happy to engage all conspiracy theories at that point in time. But it's just that the mathematical chances of it happening are so slim that I don't see much benefit there. Like, Miami gets out of the playoffs altogether, and they're not going to have a strong showing in the playoffs. At least I don't think so. Not unless they suddenly play really, really good basketball over the next 22 games, much better than they have so far. But yeah,
we know what this team is.
Yeah, I think so.
I
think so.
Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Heat. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Heat so you get all of the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Join the Cookie Gang and get Locked On Heat ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and a whole lot more. Head to lockedonheat.supercast.com to join the club.